So here's an interesting one I thought I'd just throw out there. A lot of people have been talking minions, not a lot of people have been building minions, and I kind of figure it's got to be pretty decent. Because I'm running through this dungeon with level 50, with level 74
I'm not ready yet.
enemies. And my minions are copping a lot of brunt. Army of the Dead's doing some decent damage. I have nowhere near the right aspects and nowhere near the right gear. I'm sort of just shooting Blight to send them in, taunting with my golem to bring people around to attack him instead of me, and then running away
I'm low on essence.
and staying well out of it, while my minions do all the dirty work. And you can see them attacking, you can see them doing some decent damage. It's only once we get to some of these really big guys that they don't seem to do the death-defying stunts and massive hits that you see on all the smaller guys. Almost 20 levels above.
I'm out of essence.
So minions have gotten a fair amount stronger. They're still pretty decent to use. Not a bad thing coming into the end of Season 3 just to muck around with some final builds until we... Well, sorry, Season 2 I should say, before we get into Season 3. But it's an interesting build. We'll see a little bit more gameplay. You can fast forward past these points if you don't want to watch it all. But if you're interested in watching, and you're interested in a minion build, let me just quickly jump out of here. Now let me show you why I think it could be so good when I'm versing enemies that are close to 20 levels above me, and why I think it's so good right now. So, going into the gear, let's just get rid of all of this because we're going to upgrade our gear later. You can see that my helmet doesn't really have all the right stats. My chest doesn't have any sort of damage reduction. It just has the hulking aspect. My gloves have got the skeletal warriors. My helmet's got the skeletal mages. I don't really have anything. I mean, I've got a 2 ranks of bone prison here, which is nothing. I've got movement speed here, which is nothing. A little bit of an upgrade to corpse tendrils, giving me some better crit strike chance and bit of crit strike damage. This just decreasing in attack speed, not massive. Restoring primary resource, which I don't really need. I mean, the ring's got the right idea of the sort of stats you want to be looking for in a ring, but the stats you want to be looking in all your gear is going to be stats to shadow damage over time, core skill damage, critical strike damage, vulnerable damage, any of that sort of stuff for your attacking aspects. Your defenses are going to be pretty much the same as all the other times where you're looking for max life, max essence, damage reduction from close and distant, any form of just straight damage reduction, and some resistances if you need to lift your resistances up. And your rings are going to do the usual, which is your max life, max essence, critical strike chance, bit of vulnerable damage, those sorts of things in your rings. This ring has got cold damage, which I don't do. Damage after picking up blood orbs, which I don't do. I'm gaining maximum essence per minion, which is not really a big thing. And the necklace has got the minions increased damage reduction, which helps them just get a little bit stronger, which is why I threw that on there. But has willpower, damage, darkness, no movement speed on here, nothing that has been of any use, no extra ranks to corpse tendrils, corpse explosions, corpse skills, no extra ranks to amplify damage or anything along those lines. And this is still doing really, really well. Book of the Dead, we're going Reaper Warriors so that we can make corpses. We make corpses so that we can use our corpse explosions to assist our minions. Mages, we're going Shadow because we are going to go down that Shadow Rage build. And you'll see that in the abilities, and you'll see that later as to why. And the golems, we're going bone, and the reason that we're going bone golems is for the top part here that you read, which is he taunts enemies, forcing them to attack the golem, which gives you a little bit of time to be able to cast your corpse tendrils and throw a couple of corpse explosions and throw some blight into them all when they all get put together, which would work out really, really well. Now, when we go to our skill tree, I've got the 2 points in Reap, which I was using at the beginning. I'm not using anymore. I max out Blight to help out my minions because I want to stand back, and it also means that me and my minions deal 15x increased damage when enemies are affected by Blight. So as I'm hitting them with Blight, my minions are doing more damage. Huge Flesh to make more corpses for my corpse explosions. Unliving Energy, because you do want a little bit of extra maximum essence. You don't need to fight for it, but if you get it, it's really good because it just means you can spawn more Blight. Resource generation is also good on your gear if you find it. And then Imperfectly Balanced so that our Blight does a little bit more increased damage. Coming down to the next part, we want to do Skeletal Warrior Mastery so that our Skeletal Warriors increase the damage and life is up by 45x. We max out Corpse Explosions and we go into the Blighted Corpse Explosions to create that Miasma and deal some shadow damage. So the shadow damage is what we're doing the build off. So this is kind of like an Infinimis before it becomes an Infinimis build. We're not even going for Blood Mist right now. We may potentially do this later, and I'm going to be doing an update to this later on. Hopefully just before we go into the next season, and it's something that you can use from this season or something that you can see this season, which you can start the build for next season. We don't exactly know what the powers are, we don't know what things are going to happen, but we do know that minions have gotten a lot stronger, and that's going to be staying for Season 3. So I think that minions could actually work out quite well in Season 3. I only take 1 in Grim Harvest for generating essence. It's not a huge thing. And I take Fuel by Death so that we do more damage after consuming a corpse, because our minions take on that damage as well. So the more damage we do, the more damage our minions do. I then come down, and the only thing I'm taking here is Death's Reach to do damage to distant enemies. This is so that when I shoot them with Blight, it does some more damage. And then I do my Skeletal Mage Mastery, which will actually make my mages a lot stronger and do a lot more damage as well as have a lot more life. We then come down, take Corpse Tendrils all the way out just so that we can get some Vulnerable. Vulnerable is great for us and of our minions. We're going to do a lot more with that when we get into our Paragon. And you're going to see why I keep saying that this is quite unbelievable that we're versing people that are 20 levels above us at the moment. You'll see why when we get to the Paragon board and we'll get around that. I'm only a level 57. Remember that. The Paragon board's only just opened up. I then put 1 into Reaper's Pursuit just for that little bit of movement speed, but more so I can go for the usual Gloom and Terror, and that's all to do with your Darkness and Shadow damage skills, and doing more damage to more Shadow damage and more damage to enemies who are Shadow damaged. We then scroll down, we go straight into the Golem Mastery. We increase our Golem's life to a huge amount. We use Army of the Dead, which I will potentially later on, further down the track, look to change out to be Bone Storm, because Bone Storm will help us and our Golem. It goes around him as well. And once we go into further gear later on down the track, I'll give you an idea at the end of this video if you want to hang around to the end of it on what I'm looking at using or what I'm potentially going to use towards it. And then I put 1 point in here in Bounded by Essence just so I can get down and have the minions have increased armor and increased resistance to elements. I'd love to get another point here, but there's not really anywhere else I can take points out of to put it in here. There is a potential to take out the points from Death's Reach. I'd put 1 in here to max that out, and then I'd put the other 2 in here for Inspiring Leader so that the minions just attack a little bit faster. But I think Death's Reach for me, and for me to be able to do a little bit of extra damage, is good, because you are there to assist your minions as much as they're there to do all the damage. This is trying to go to be as much of a minion build and nothing else as I can get it to. I'm trying to do that without adding too much from myself into the actual mix. As I said, later on down the track, I've got a couple of things that I'd like to change, which I think will be a lot better. And then down the bottom, we go into Shadow Blight. Now, a lot of people would say, why don't you use Kalan's Edict? But, you know, if you've not taken damage over the last 2 seconds, your minions gain attack speed. Yeah, the attack speed can be really, really good. But at the end of the day, I think if I'm assisting them, the Shadow Blight and the Shadow Blight damage is going to be really good. What this will also mean is with Shadow Blight on, we are going to go and use 2 different aspects, which will be, number 1, the Blighted Offensive aspect, which is you deal more damage for 6 seconds after Shadow Blight damages enemies 10 times. And number 2, each time Shadow Blight deals damage to enemies, it increases the next Shadow Blight damage within the next 10 seconds. So you can see I've started to pick up the aspects that I want. I'm not putting them onto gear yet. 1, because this is a god roll of that aspect. I'd like to put that onto something that's at least half decent, and that's, you know, in the 800s when it comes to item power, rather than wasting it on something so early. But that's what we're going to be looking at, and that's what we're looking to do. So there's the potential here also to throw in the offensive aspect of Ultimate Shadow, which means that when we do get Bone Storm later on, Bone Storm becomes a darkness skill and it deals shadow damage, so that ourselves and our golem with our Bone Storms around us start to damage everything around us and start to actually do some shadow damage, which is going to proc the Shadow Blight, and it's going to proc a lot of other things. The other thing that I'm looking at doing is building out this board. I've only just started, literally. Here's the first part. I don't even have all the glyphs. Let's have a look down here. I don't have all the glyphs. I had a friend of mine who was playing one night, so I jumped on with him just to carry me into the AOZ once. Got the Tears of Blood. It's at level 1. There's no way that I'm surviving through these things ever again, so I just got the Tears of Blood, and I'm using it up in number 2, but I'm only using it because I don't really have any other glyphs here at the moment which are any good for minions. And then from there, I've gone up into the excuse me, cult leaderboard, and we're going to max this out. We're going to max everything out on this cult leaderboard. So we're going to go down here and take the minion damage. We're going to come up here and we're going to take the skeletal warrior damage. We're going to go out here for minion armor and minion life. We're going to come down here for all your minions getting attacked. We're going to come down here and take this as well. We're going to take absolutely all of this. The next board that we're going to go into after that is Hulking Monstrosity, which is going to build up our golem substantially. That's going to be board 3, and I'm going into that so that we can get pretty much everything that you can read down here. We want the infused golem for his life. We want the flesh horror for resistances for our minions. We want the miscreation for the golem's armor. We want mutation for the golem's damage. We want borrowed strength so that when golems are active, 6% total armor for us as well, that when we get golems are active, and the frenzied golem so that the golem does a heap more damage and he does it a lot quicker. There's a lot of things in here that we want to put. We're basically going to take out the whole Hulking Monstrosity board as well, which is not going to leave us with much for when it comes to the 4th board, and I think the 4th one is the only other one we're going to be able to come up with. I don't think we're going to be able to get a 5th out of this. The 4th board that we're going to get, sorry, let's just go back here, is going to be the Wither board, so that we get some shadow damage and we get our shadow damage up. Basically what this is going to do, you can already see the current bonus 70x, that's going to be a lot bigger when we get towards the end of it. It's just that your shadow damage does a lot more, and then we're going to try and get whatever ones of these we can. More so the things along the lines of damage to elites, shadow damage over time, and probably the malediction at the top for some extra shadow damage and intelligence. I'm not sure we're going to need the resistances. We may potentially need them depending on how we go, because normally we get a lot of our resistances out of Book of the Dead. I think that what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to come back in here and we're going to have to look at resistances on our gear. Now, as promised at the end, I did want to cover a couple of things in regards to how I'm looking at for the end build and what I'm looking to towards the end of the build. So the Reapers, the Skeletal Mages, and the Bone Golem are probably all going to stay. If I was to change the Golem to anything else, it would probably be the Blood Golem, where he drains life to bolster himself, just to make him a bit stronger and make sure that he lasts longer. And also he gets some damage reduction if you take the take one of the upgrades. So you can either get damage reduction on him, you can get some 15% damage reduction on yourself. That's one of the things that we might change. I don't think I will, though, at the end of the day. What we're going to be looking for in our gear is probably going to be things like this, like the resistances. We're going to want resistances on our boots. We're going to want resistances on our helmets. We're going to want to make sure that we have as much damage reduction as we can across our pants and across our chest. And we're going to change one of these aspects to be aspect of disobedience so that we get a lot of extra stuff. Shadow Blight's going to go on the necklace so that we deal a whole bunch more Shadow Blight damage, which is going to help. When it comes to the actual weapon, it will probably be Black River. And the reason I say this is one of these rings will change, or both of these rings will change, but one of these rings will change to be the Malignant ring, which is going to mean that it's going to automatically cast Corpse Tendrills. It's going to automatically spawn our minions back, which is great for us every second, and it's going to cause Corpse Explosions, and those Corpse Explosions will restore a lot of essence. For those who have watched my Bone Spear build, you'll notice that on my Bone Spear build, that is what brings back a lot of essence into the build, so I can just run and keep using Bone Spear. This will allow me to run and keep using Blight. And the other ring will probably be X-Fowls. I'm not sure if we're going to go Mendelin for the lucky hit. We're going to test both of them and we're going to see, but I think it's going to be X-Fowls. X-Fowls will probably hit a lot harder. And coming down into our, well, where we'd normally hold the focus, into our defensive slot, because we're going to look to move to the bone, apologies, we're going to look to actually go to a different ultimate, and we're going to go look at Bone Storm. I think that we're going to have to use the Necromancer shield. I think we're going to have to go down Lidless Wall, because Lidless Wall is just going to give us multiple Bone Storms all across the board, and with our Golem using it as well, and our Golem going out to hit, it's just going to make more Bone Storms. It's a lot of protection for us, which means we'll be able to push this build a lot higher than people think. Now, this is just a quick one just to go through and to see where everything is at. I don't doubt that there is going to be a number of changes that I make along the way getting to 100, but I'm hoping to be able to get up to 100 in the next couple of days, and I'm going to redo this video or redo another video which will show you the next upgrades to attack power, to armor, to life, and everything else, and also show you all the new gear that I've picked and everything else that I'm putting on. I'm trying to stay away from the Uber uniques on this. I'm going to try and stay with no Uber uniques whatsoever. It's just going to be a couple of uniques. I want to try and see if I can maybe even just stick with just uniques in the rings and not even use the uniques in the weapons. But to be able to push this, I'd like to see, and I'd very much like to be able to show you a minion build pushing a T100 Nightmare Dungeon, and then to be able to take that build and bring it into at least the very first level of Abattoir of Zir before the Abattoir gets taken away for Season 3. So we're at level 57, we're going to keep building, and once we finish building, I will be back recording another video to show you guys where we're at with everything that's happened up to this point. So hope you like the build. If you like the videos, if you're starting to like what we're putting out, please do like, subscribe, share, click all the fancy buttons that help us, you know, get a little bit more with the algorithm with YouTube. We'd love to be able to make more of these videos. We have had a couple of comments here and there that are coming up on some of them. We noticed that there's a lot of views. If there's other builds you'd like to see, if there's things you'd like to see us do, when Season 3 comes out, we're going to try and pick a build each. So you're going to have myself and DJ Damo Ninja coming on and picking two separate builds, building them up and showing you two different variations. I think it's going to be a great thing. So enjoy the rest of Season 2 while it lasts, and I will see you in a couple of days when we build up this beautiful little minion build to a level 100 and see where we go from there. Thanks, guys.